Knowing when to level up in TFT has always been the most important concept you need to master because it sets the tempo for your entire game. And in set 11, it's going to be no different. However, they did make a few changes compared to previous sets that you need to be aware of. So in this video, we are going to cover 6 different leveling strategies. These cover pretty much every scenario you'll ever encounter, and it should be the only leveling guide that you'll need for this entire set. So the reason why set 11 is different from set 10 is that there are no more headliners, so the rolling patterns become a lot different than what we're used to in case you played a lot in the previous set. And if you're a new player or coming in from an older set, well then you're going to need a crash course anyways on everything that's been going on. So essentially they changed the leveling threshold from level 8 to level 9, and it's being reduced from 80 gold all the way to 72. This essentially accelerates the round that you hit level 9 in the games that you are actually going for that, which means that Fast 9 could be a viable strategy starting in set 11. Next up, they have changed the shop odds for level 7 and level 8, so they made level 7 even better for 3 costs but slightly worse for 2 costs. And then at level 8, they're increasing the odds for 4 cost units to show up while reducing the chances of 3 cost units. So what they are trying to accomplish with these changes is to give level identities for each corresponding cost. So if you want to go for 1 cost units, level 4 and 5 are going to be your bread and butter. Obviously level 4 is better, but the game forces you to level up to level 5, which we'll get into in the 1 cost reroll section. Level 6 is going to be for 2 cost units, and then level 7 for 3 costs. As you see here, 40% is a huge number. And then level 8 is going to be mainly for 4 cost units. So now that you know how the game has changed, let's first cover standard leveling. We'll cover Fast 8, Fast 9, and all the 1, 2, and 3 cost rerolls after this. But standard leveling is probably the most important thing you need to know because it's what you're going to be doing in most of your games, and it obviously has a lot of overlap with some of the other leveling patterns, but overall it's pretty flexible because if you do decide to pivot into like a 2 cost, 3 cost, or like a Fast 8 or Fast 9 leveling pattern, standard leveling is going to have you covered there. So literally by going standard leveling, you could branch off into any other strategy, but you're by no means committed. But essentially, this leveling pattern is great for comps with good carries at different costs. So let's say you are going for the Arcanist comp, which has item holders as Ari at 1 cost, Lux at 2 costs, Zoe at 3 costs, then you get into your final form of Syndra, and then in the super late game, Lissandra. Pretty much any trait that has good carry units at each cost are going to work great for standard leveling. So the way leveling works in TFT is that you gain 2 experience every single round, and that means you normally hit level 3 at the start of the game, which typically starts around stage 2. You could tell what stage you're in by looking at the top of your screen, or you could currently see what round it is. But you almost always hit level 3 at the start of stage 2, and we'll get into some exceptions later on. This means this is going to be the first decision point of knowing when to level up or knowing when to stay at the same level. So typically, getting to level 4 only costs 4 XP at this point in the game. So if you do want to level up and spend 4 gold, it's really easy to do that on stage 2-1, and this is what a lot of people normally do when they do a standard leveling pattern. The reason why is because you can win streak with the level up and then have a pretty balanced health total and gold total as you get into the mid game. Alternatively, if you're trying to lose streak, don't level up, and then you'll naturally level up to level 4 on stage 2-3, which is only 2 rounds later. Leveling up gives you the added bonus of having good leveling odds, so what people look out for at level 4 when they're doing standard leveling is the types of units they need to hit. So in TFT, there are champion pools, and typically if you're going for a lot of upgraded units, you want to actually stay level 3. So if you have a lot of pairs on your bench, let's say you have 2 Kabukos on your bench, and you really want Kabuko 2-star because an upgraded unit is fantastic. Staying level 3 is going to be a lot better because you have a 75% chance to get 1 cost units compared to 55% at level 4. So if you have multiple pairs on your bench that are all 1 cost, staying level 3 might be the better option even though you want to win streak during stage 2. But let's say you already have 1 or 2 units upgraded, then you want to level up to try to get 2 and 3 cost units. At level 4, you unlock 3 cost units at 15% chance, and those units can be critical in complementing your team by unlocking a certain trait synergy, or by just being a solid unit in general. After level 4, level 5 comes next, so typically you want to hit level 5 at around stage 2-5 if you leveled up before, but if not, you typically get to level 5 around stage 3-1. I forgot to mention this before, but during level 4 and level 5, you typically do not want to roll any of your gold unless there's a very specific encounter that shows up. For example, Yorick can reduce your rolls in your shops by 1 for the next 3 rounds, and then sometimes if you are looking for a very specific upgrade, it's worth to use those rolls. It is a pretty rare case, but I do want to bring this up because having rolls discounted, and it is worth it even if you're trying to fast 8 to roll in a lot of cases. The next level up we have is level 6, and you typically almost always reach this around stage 3-2. This is after you pick your second augment, so you have a lot of direction in what you're going. And here you generally have around 20 to 30 or more gold depending on how you econned in the early game. Some games you don't have a lot of econ and you have around 20 gold, but some games you have like a ton of econ, maybe you're on a full win streak or lose streak. In those cases, you might even have like 40 or 50 gold if you had an econ augment. At level 6, sometimes you do need to roll a little bit, contrary to level 4 and 5, because stage 3 is typically when life totals start to matter a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit. So if you have a lot of pairs on your bench, let's say you are 8th place right now and you have not hit any upgrades, this is generally going to be the time where you roll a little bit of gold in order to save your mid game. This number could be anywhere from 10 to 30 gold depending on your health. If you have lower health, you need to be rolling a bit more. However, sometimes I roll on level 6 even if I'm high health because I want to be maintaining my win streak. So those are kind of the two scenarios you need to balance out. One where you're lose streaking and one where you're win streaking. When you're win streaking, you generally want to keep the win streak going further and further. So again, the same rules apply if you have a lot of pairs, or if you're looking for a very specific unit, maybe like a 3-cost unit that you're missing. Rolling at level 6 could be the key to keeping your win streak alive. After that, we want to reach level 7. So generally, level 7 is reached on stage 4-1, but sometimes if you have a ton of gold, like if you're the person who had 50 gold level 6 at stage 3-2, you have enough gold to reach level 7 at stage 3-5. So the general rule with leveling is that if you can level up and still have 30 gold or more left over, you should pretty much 95% of the time level up. So very similar rules apply. If you were on a big lose streak and got a lot of streak gold, you can easily reach level 7 at stage 3-5 and have 30 or more gold. Obviously, you probably should roll at that point if you did lose streak the entirety of the game, because you're going to die soon and you need to win some rounds. And then the same exact thing as level 6, if you were on a win streak, the same rules apply to you also, where you could roll a little bit more to continue your streak. However, if you're already happy with your board and you either have like a regular amount of gold, or if you were win streaking, you could look to fast 8 at this point and not roll at all at level 7. Typically, you want to do this in 4-cost metas, where pretty much all the S and A tier comps all involve 4-cost units, because level 8 is going to be the best time to roll for those units. However, if it's not a 4-cost meta, feel free to roll a little bit at level 7 to kind of stabilize your board in order to reach level 8 safely. Typically, I like doing this at stage 4-1, maybe roll around like 10 gold, get 1 or 2 upgrades, maybe get a 1-star 4-cost to kind of play as my temporary item holder before I finalize my late game board, and hopefully that lasts me until stage 5. Pretty much the goal of level 7 or anything during stage 4 is just to live until stage 5, and hopefully you have around like 30 plus health at stage 5, hit your final late game board, and hopefully win from there. But this brings us to the next level, which is level 8. Level 8 is typically the most crucial level in most comps in TFT because, again, TFT is built around 4-costs, and this is just the best time to roll for them. So all the other levels we talked about rolling like 10 gold, 20 gold, at most like 30 gold. But at level 8, you want to roll all your gold in like 75% of your games, because level 8 is just a crucial power spike where you pretty much sacrifice a lot of your game to reach this level. So if you're able to reach level 8 and have 30 or more gold after leveling up, you generally want to roll all that gold that you have. This typically happens at stage 4-5. Sometimes it happens on 4-2 if you're doing a fast 8, more on that later. But if you rolled a lot during level 6 and level 7, you might reach level 8 at stage 5-1. Typically, this isn't like a bad sign by any means. It means you're stronger during the mid game. So if you level up to level 8 at around 5-1, those are typically kind of your top 4 games, not necessarily the games you're going to win in. The latest point people generally hit level 8 if they are doing standard leveling is going to be stage 5-2. This generally is a pretty late point in the game. But again, if you rolled a lot, or if you had horrible econ for most of your game, or if you had something like Trade Sector, which forced you to spend a lot of gold in the early game, you might hit level 8 around this stage. The last level you're going to hit in most of your games is going to be level 9. This typically happens mid to late stage 5 or early stage 6. But again, this is going to be a very big power spike, so you want to roll all your gold after you hit level 9. unless you're doing something very specific, such as going for like a 3-star 4 cost or something like that. One thing to keep in mind before considering level 9 is to ask yourself, why do we even need to be level 9? So you typically want to be level 9 when most of your board at level 8 is upgraded. If you're missing like a bunch of 4 cost upgrades or like a couple of 3 cost upgrades even, you generally don't want to go level 9 unless you have an infinite amount of health. But that's typically not how most games play out. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes I see beginners make is getting to level 9 too quickly and not having enough gold to roll down to upgrade their board. Typically that happens on level 8, so I would only recommend level 9 if you have 80 or 90% of your board at 2-star. The only other time I would say go level 9 is if I explicitly say so on my tier list at bunnymuffins.lol/meta, which I'm going to be updating every single Friday. You can typically see these in the leveling pattern section over here, and if I say go level 9, obviously you should be going level 9. Now that I've already stated that level 9 is pretty rare, level 10 is even more rare. You typically only hit this around stage 6, and the decision point between going level 10 or staying level 9 is whether you can hit 3-star 4 cost. If you can hit a 3-star 4 cost, you might want to roll for it at level 9. If not, go level 10. Maybe you need to hit a very key synergy breakpoint, or if you want to just play a bunch of legendaries, then level 10 is going to be for you. Next, let's cover Fast 8. Fast 8 is very similar to standard leveling, except the one change is that you pretty much do not roll for most of the game. If player damage is low, the Fast 8 strategy generally performs a little bit better to the standard leveling pattern. Standard leveling likes preserving a little bit of your health throughout the game. You roll a bit more at level 6 and level 7, but if they design the game where you don't take too much damage in the early to mid game, Fast 8 is going to be superior because you hit your late game a couple rounds earlier. Typically when you do a Fast 8, you hit level 8 around stage 4-2 or 4-5. Sometimes it even happens at stage 4-1. By the way, I forgot if I mentioned this already, but if you do get economy augments such as hedge fund, balanced budget, escort quest, or raining gold, you're going to be hitting all the leveling breakpoints a little bit earlier than everything that's seen on this guide. This also holds true if you're in a portal or if you're in a encounter that also gives bonus experience or bonus gold. A lot of times if you get great economy starts, fast aiding again is going to be better than standard leveling because you're going to have a ton of gold to roll at level 8. Generally, you want at least 30 gold to roll with, but if you're on the portal Econ opener, for example, you might have 40 gold or even 50 gold to roll with instead, which makes your team that much stronger because it's just much easier to hit a completely upgraded board. But overall, for level 4, level 5, level 6, level 7, you hit those at the same exact times as you do as standard leveling. The only difference is you do not roll and then you hit level 8 slightly earlier. Then of course, roll all your gold and then follow the same principles before going level 9 and level 10. Next up, let's cover Fast 9ing, which is very similar to Fast 8, except it's even more extreme. I only recommend doing this if you have at least one Econ augment, preferably combined with an Econ portal or encounter. The more you have, the better Fast 9ing is going to be. But this might be possible to do because they changed the leveling cost from 80 experience to 72, and that means it's 8 gold less to level up with. Typically you get around like 10 to 15 gold each round in TFT, so this essentially means that you could hit level 9 around 1 round earlier. And 1 round definitely means a lot. Imagine if you're lose streaking all game trying to fast 9 and you have 3 health versus having like 15 health. That's a big difference in a lot of cases. But pretty much you follow the same exact pattern as we've done before, except now it's from level 4 all the way to level 8. And then at level 9, you generally want to hit it around stage 5-1. But if you do it properly with like a ton of Econ augments, maybe an Econ portal or encounter, you could even hit level 9 at stage 4-5, which again is a very crucial point in the game because you are able to save a ton of life total if you're able to get a decent board at that stage. Typically, Fast 9ing will be popular if 5 costs are really good. So if they buff up all the legendaries and they're much stronger than everything else, Fast 9ing is going to be the way to go. Maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. It really depends on how they do the balance changes. But if you do see a patch and a lot of 5 costs are being buffed up to ridiculous levels, don't be surprised if you see everyone else Fast 9ing for that entire week right before they B-patch it. Next up, let's go over the reroll pattern. So we're going to do 1 cost, 2 cost, and 3 cost reroll. Contrary to all the standard leveling that we went over with the Fast 8 and Fast 9, the rerolling patterns are a lot different from each other. The reason why is because their key levels always happen at different points in the game. So let's start off with 1 cost reroll, and we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. So again, you start the game at level 3 at stage 2-1, but you do not want to level up in 100% of cases if you're doing one cost reroll. So the reason why is because with one cost reroll, you want to see one cost as often as possible. This is going to be very important for things like the Garen hero augment, maybe like a Kog'Maw comp and other things like that. But again, if we look at the champion roll odds, the lower level you are, the higher chance you can see one cost units in your shop. So you do not want to level up. You want to be level 3 as long as you can, which typically only happens for 2 rounds, but you get a 75% chance of one cost units. So to get to level 4, that will happen naturally without pressing the level up button at stage 2-3. However, we do not want to roll yet. You want to stay level 4 for as long as you can, and then the turn right before you hit level 5, that's when you want to roll all your gold. That way you can build up as big of an economy as possible to get the most out of your rolls. This happens at stage 3-1, which is a crucial point of one cost reroll. So this again is the last round you're going to be level 4, so you want to roll down to 30 gold. Typically I have around like 50 or 60 gold at this point in the game when I'm doing this leveling pattern. Of course, when doing one cost reroll, you should have as many copies of the unit as you're going for as you can. So if you're going for a Kog'Maw reroll, generally at around stage 3-1, I would only consider going for a one cost reroll if I had maybe like 5 or 6 copies of Kog'Maw before my roll down. After you roll down to 30 gold, you definitely want to have at least 7 copies of your unit. If you have 8, what I like doing at this point is rolling an additional 10 gold to kind of see what happens, and if I hit the 8th copy, then I roll another 10 gold. However, I always keep at least 10 gold because it's really hard to go from 0 to 10, but it's much easier to go from 10 to 20, 20 to 30, etc., because of the way interest works in TFT. However, if you're at stage 3-1 and you don't have like 5+ copies before the roll down, what you can do instead is called a slow roll. This is going to be only rolling down to 50 gold every single turn while buying all the units that you are looking for. This would continue at level 5 when you hit level 5 naturally at stage 3-2, and you pretty much do this until stage 4-1, where you all in and roll down all your gold, praying that you hit your 3-star of your unit. While you are doing a slow roll, as you hit more and more of your units, you might want to think about a time to all in even before stage 4. Sometimes if I have like 4 copies of my unit, let's just use Kog'Maw as the example here at stage 3-1, and then stage 3-2, I roll down a bit, don't hit anything, and then like we're at stage 3-5 now, I roll down, I have like 7 or 8 copies. Those might be times where I'm thinking, maybe I roll down below 50 gold, try to see if I find more Kog'Maws, and then sometimes I hit the Kog'Maw 3-star. It's going to depend on my life total, whether I do this or not, and if I'm going for other 3-stars as well. If I'm going for multiple one-cost units to 3-star, and I'm like 2 off all of them, that might be a time where I just all in earlier than stage 4-1, because again, health total is pretty important starting in stage 3. After you do hit the 3-star of your desired unit though, you want to go level 6, level 7, level 8, as quickly as you can. Pretty much, I just econ up, and then if I could level up and throw a key unit in, that's when I would typically do so. So I'd hit level 6 pretty quickly because it's not that expensive. But then at level 7, let's say I need to put in like 4 sniper or 6 sniper, and I need that extra unit slot, I'd just level up, go to 0 gold, and throw in that extra synergy. However, if it's not a breakpoint, say I'm already at 4 sniper, for example, then I might only go to level 7 if I can keep 30 or more gold, and then power level to level 8 in order to get that extra trait in. Obviously, it's going to depend on the comp, but I'm just trying to give some examples of after you hit your 3-star. That's one cost reroll in a nutshell. It's probably one of the easier comps to do, and it's great for beginners. Next, let's get into 2 cost reroll. 2 cost reroll, I'd say, is like the trickiest one out of all the reroll comps, and a lot of people think like rerolling doesn't take a lot of skill, but I think 2 cost reroll is the most skill-intensive rerolling pattern compared to 1 and 3 costs. The reason why is because stabilizing and knowing how to power spike is a lot more difficult. So for level 4 in stage 2, you could level up at stage 2-1 in order to win streak, or you could just wait, level up passively at stage 2-3 and go on a lose streak. So you have some decision making there, which is different from the 1 cost reroll. Win streaking's actually pretty decent for 2 cost reroll, and leveling up early is also pretty decent as well because you get higher odds when you level up to hit 2 cost units. So there are obviously going to be a lot of pluses and minuses to doing so. And the final decision maker on whether you should level up at 2-1 or level up at 2-3 is going to change based on your game. Again, this is why I think it's more skill intensive than 1 and 3 cost reroll. For level 5, you generally hit this around stage 2-5 or 3-1. And that's going to be completely dependent on when you hit level 4. If you hit level 4 at stage 2-1, generally you're going to be level 5 at stage 2-5. If you hit level 4 at 2-3, you're going to hit level 5 at 3-1. Again, do not roll. Level 6 is going to be the key part of your game though. So there are going to be times where you are going on a huge lose streak and you actually need to roll a ton of gold at level 6 in order to stabilize your board. Luckily, since you're going for a 2-cost reroll, level 6 is going to be the key level for you, as we talked about at the beginning of this video. Luckily, that means they're going to be holding all your items, and you would only go for a 2-cost reroll comp if you had good items for it. So you get really powerful if you hit a 2-star of your 2-cost. In metas where 2-cost reroll comps are just so powerful that everyone goes for them no matter what, you might not have a lot of copies of your unit before committing to the comp. Typically, I only like playing reroll comps if I have a ton of the units for them, because that means I don't have to spend so much gold trying to find them. But if we're in a meta where everyone's going for 2 costs, sometimes you got to join in on the bandwagon as well. So what do you do in those cases where you're just trying to hard force a 2-cost reroll comp? So what you need to do is roll a lot of your gold at stage 3-2. Sometimes I have to roll 50 gold to get a 2-star 2-cost. But if the comp is truly OP, it is well worth it. If you do decide to go this route, you have to econ all the way back up to 50 gold and then start slow rolling after that. Slow rolling, as we explained before, is just rolling down to 50 gold every single turn, buying all the units that you are specifically looking for. Then you try to find a time to all in, typically around stage 4-1, 4-2, or 4-5. Those are going to be the key all-inning points. But again, only do this type of strategy if 2-cost rerolls are absolutely bonkers good. If you're just trying to go for 2-cost reroll in like a normal game or like a normal meta where everything's generally pretty balanced, what you want to do instead is do a slow roll. So at stage 3-2, you might roll a little bit of gold, maybe like 10 or 20 gold, but you're really just looking for a 2-star of your 2-cost. And you should only go for it if you already have a 2-star 2-cost before stage 3, or if you have at least like 2 copies of them. That way you don't have to spend too much gold looking for the unit. Typically, if you have 2 copies of the unit, you only need to roll around like 10 gold at level 6 in order to get them to 2-star. After that, econ back up to 50 gold, slow roll, rinse, repeat until you hit your 3-star 2-cost. Then for level 7, level 8, and level 9, you want to follow the same exact rules that we laid out for 1-cost reroll, where if you need to hit a very specific level to add an extra unit in for a specific trait, then spend all your money and level up. However, if adding an extra unit does not really benefit your team that much, only level up if you can keep at least 30 gold. Overall, 2-cost reroll comps are still like generally pretty easy compared to like standard leveling, but again, compared to the other reroll comps, it's a lot more difficult because the decisions in the early game matter a lot more, at least in my opinion. Next up we have is 3-cost reroll. 3-cost reroll kind of mirrors standard leveling a lot of times, but there are kind of 2 ways to go about it. So the first way to go for 3-cost reroll is just doing standard leveling, and if you happen to hit a lot of your desired unit, let's say you're going for Tristana reroll and you just randomly get a 2-star Tristana for free, then yeah, you want to pivot into a 3-cost reroll pattern, in which case you hit level 7, which is the best level for 3-cost units, and then you start slow rolling at that point. And you pretty much follow the whole standard leveling pattern all the way through. That's pretty easy, nothing too complicated there. The second way to play 3-cost reroll is to go on a massive lose streak and then roll all your gold, or like a lot of your gold, until you stabilize around stage 3-2 or 3-5, and then econ back up and slow roll after that. That's a bit trickier, so let's talk about that. So in order to do a full lose streak, you pretty much do not spend any gold leveling up in stage 2, and ideally you go on like a 5-game losing streak. That way you build up a lot of gold and you're able to roll a lot more at key levels. So there are times where you're going to stabilize at stage 3-2 at level 6, and then there are times where you're going to stabilize at 3-5 at level 7. When do you do which? So what I like to do is, again, I only go for reroll comps if I have a lot of my desired units. If I have no Tristanas, why would I go Tristana reroll? It's completely nonsense, right? But if you're super hard forcing and you have like no copies of your unit, the only time I would do this is maybe if you have completely perfect best in slot items for your Tristana. In that case, you want to lose streak all the way until stage 3-5, level up to level 7, which is the best level for 3-cost units, and then roll all your gold until you hit 2-star Tristana. Ideally, you get some of her complementary units as well, and that way you stop losing and like you hopefully win every round from there all the way until like at least stage 5. However, on the flip side, if you do have a couple of copies of Tristana, you want to actually roll at level 6 on stage 3-2. It might seem counterintuitive because we did say level 7 is the best level for 3-cost units. However, stabilizing 2 turns earlier could actually save a lot of health in your games, because again, you only need a 2-star Tristana at this stage in the game, and hitting it 2 stages earlier actually saves you a lot of health later on, which in turn gives you more gold because you can level up a little later perhaps, or sacrifice a couple rounds later in the game and collect more interest at those points. So again, we could kind of mirror the 2 cost reroll pattern that we did before at stage 3-2, where we might only have to spend 10 gold to find a 2-star Tristana in a lot of cases. And if we have perfect items for her, we're going to be winning every round in stage 3 at that point. Regardless of which path you took from before, you want to reach levels 8 and 9 pretty much at your own pace. You're not in a rush to do so because most of these comps, they are pretty complete at level 7. But obviously, after you hit your desired units, spend all your gold into leveling up and then playing a complementary trait unit. The very last situation I want to cover on 3 cost rerolling is sometimes you could even reach level 7 on stage 3-2. This happens if you get like an insane econ augment. Again, if you started the game with like hedge fund, this is possible. Maybe you saw a ton of different encounters which gave a lot of gold. Those are going to be the games where you are able to stabilize super early without costing you too much gold. Another good augment that's really good with 2 and 3 cost reroll is March of Progress. March of Progress just gives you a ton of free experience, and it means that you could spend all your gold just on rolling, which makes hitting your upgrades very reliable. Other good augments for re-rolling is stuff like Trade Sector, Prismatic Ticket. Anything that gives you free rolls is going to be more than welcome. But the next topic I want to go over are some of the encounters and how they affect leveling, because there are quite a few of them. First, let's go over some of those that affect experience. So let's go over Darius first. He's going to give you the choice of 20 experience or 10 free rerolls. Pretty much the way you decide on this encounter is whether you're a reroll comp or if you're going like fast 8, fast 9. Obviously, if you're going to fast whatever, you want to take the experience to get to the desired level as quickly as possible. And if you are re-rolling and you're already the level that you want to be, obviously the free re-rolls are going to be the choice for you. One of the trickier ones is going to be Kha'Zix, where he causes your XP to cost 3 gold instead of 4 gold for the next couple of rounds. This changes the game completely because he's going to want you to spend your XP and hit your levels at a different time than you normally would. Think of it as a 25% discount though. You pretty much want to take advantage of it. The rule I like to apply whenever Kha'Zix does hit is again staying above 30 gold, but sometimes if you need to power spike, you could go a little more aggressive and even go down to like 20 gold and then roll a bit more in the future rounds after you econ back up. Next, I want to go over Yorick. One of Yorick's thing allows you to field at least 7 champions regardless of your level. And in these cases, I actually love playing 1 cost reroll because you're able to field a ton of champions and get a lot of key synergies while still being able to roll for your 1 cost units. Bard is pretty funny as well. Bard levels each player up to level 3 at the start of the game. So you essentially have like a bunch of forced XP earlier on. Think of it as starting the game off with extra gold, let's say like 10 extra gold, except every player was forced to spend it on experience instead. It's nothing too crazy, you kind of play the game as usual, but you'll probably be hitting each of your desired levels maybe a round or 2 earlier. The last weird one is going to be Zoe. She changes reality so only odd levels exist in the game. Again, you kind of want to follow similar rules as before. You generally only want to level up if you could keep 30 or more gold. And if you need to roll at a very specific point, obviously have as much gold as you can and roll down all your gold after hitting that level. It's going to depend on what comp you play. But again, I'll be updating that in the meta snapshot every single Friday as I've always done since I think like set 2. I think that covered most of the encounters that you're going to see that are going to be changing things up. Obviously, the ones that involve rerolls, just use the free rerolls. There isn't really much to like think of about that or anything to like change your playstyle with that much, except maybe you're able to like econ a little bit harder. But let's just round off this video with a couple of general leveling tips that I think you should know. So you generally have like 3 options with your gold, and that is to either save the gold, roll the gold, or use it on leveling. So generally you want to save gold if you want to reach a very specific level, such as like fast aiding, or maybe you need to hit level 7 for 3 cost reroll and you have not reached that level yet. That's a sign to like save some gold. Another sign is if you're healthy. If you're healthy, you don't need to spend your gold to get a strong board, and you could sacrifice some of your HP in order to reach a better level later or build a bigger economy. Lastly, if your board's already strong, you don't need to spend gold to do anything to make it stronger. So then you could also just save your extra gold. Next, you want to roll your gold when you want to preserve your health, such as the all-inning situations that we talked about before, maybe like the stabilization checkpoints, or if you need to complete a lot of pairs. If your bench is full of 2 copies of a unit and you only need 1 more to upgrade a few of them, then rolling gold, even if it's not during the times that I tell you to, is going to be a good idea. Sometimes I roll on like stage 3-3, even though I typically don't do that, because if I have a ton of pairs all of a sudden, it's worth rolling at those weird stages because not everything in TFT is like a formula. The last situation where I'd roll a bunch of gold is if I need a very specific unit at a specific cost and I'm at the optimal level to roll for them. So if you reach like level 7 and you're going for 3 cost reroll, obviously that's going to be a time where you want to roll. If you're level 6 and you're going for 2 cost reroll, obviously roll your gold. And if you're level 8 going for 4 costs, obviously roll your gold. Next, when do you want to spend your gold on leveling up? Generally, there are 3 times I want to do this. The first one is when I want to add an extra unit to activate a key trait, similar to what we talked about before when we were playing Kog'Maw and we wanted to get the sniper bonus. Maybe if you're at 3 sniper or 2 sniper and you want to get to 4, well, you need to level up sometimes to do that, and it's well worth the cost. The next situation where I want to level up is if I want to reach a certain level to roll for units at a specific cost. Again, leveling up to level 8 to roll for 4 cost units, level 7 for 3 cost, etc. And lastly, if I have too much gold and I don't make any interest from the gold, you might as well use it to buy experience with, because like you're not using it for anything else. But those are the 3 situations where I find myself spending money on leveling up. So hopefully those general tips do help you out as well. But that's going to be the guide for set 11. Hopefully everyone learned a little bit in this video. Again, leveling is super duper important because it's probably like the most important fundamental skill in the game. So hopefully after this you have like a basic concept. And then as you play more and more, you'll find exceptions like the rolling at stage 3-3 situation that I talked about before. And those are ultimately what make you a better player than everyone else at your level. But that's going to be it from me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. I'll be coming out with a meta snapshot on Friday, as I have done every single Friday. So do look out for that on bunnymuffins.lol/meta or on the channel here.